I shouldn't have said it. The words came out too sharp, half a joke, half a dare. That's not the only thing. She blinked once, slow, like she was deciding whether to let it pass or call me out. And then she said it, calm, even, but heavy enough to leave me standing there stupidly. You're making this hard. The shop smelled like motor oil and burnt coffee. A single fan ticked back and forth, doing nothing but spreading the heat around. I'd been fixing carburetors since morning, grease under my nails, sweat on my back, and yet the only thing distracting me was her. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. A woman like her didn't belong in a dusty, half-forgotten repair shop on the edge of town. Mid-40s, pressed blouse, hair pinned back like she had somewhere better to be. But her eyes, they stayed, searching. Her car was nothing special, old sedan, dent on the side, overdue for more than just an oil change. But the way she leaned against the counter, tapping her nails once, twice, like she was measuring the silence, it was like she owned the room. I asked the usual questions, gave the usual answers. She didn't talk much, just a slight smile, a tilt of her head, and then, out of nowhere, her voice dipped lower. Do you always make things sound like a challenge? I froze, wiped my hands on a rag that was already dirty, buying time. Only when I mean them, I said, and instantly regretted it. Her lips pressed together, not a smile, not a frown. Something in between. A look that made me feel like she saw more than I wanted her to. I kept busy, checking the dipstick, scribbling down numbers that didn't matter. Anything not to hold her gaze too long. But she didn't move, didn't rush. She lingered, and that's when it happened. My wrench slipped, clattered to the floor, and before I could reach it, she bent down first. Quick, graceful. She held it out to me, her fingers brushing mine for the briefest second. I swear I felt that touch all the way to my throat. Neither of us said anything. The fan ticked. The clock on the wall clicked forward. She let the silence win, and I hated how much it pulled me closer to her. Finally, she cleared her throat, shifting her weight. You're making this hard. Hard to what? Hard to leave? Hard to ignore? Hard to pretend nothing was happening? I didn't ask. My mouth ran before my head did, and all I could give her was that stupid, dangerous line. That's not the only thing. Her eyes narrowed, but there was no anger there. Just something. Something I couldn't name. She picked up her keys, tapped them against her palm, and said nothing else. Just a small nod, as if she'd let me keep whatever that moment was. For now. The bell above the door jingled as she left, the echo hanging longer than it should have. I stood there in the heat, wrench still in my hand, wondering what the hell just happened. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The next day she came back, said she'd forgotten to ask about the brakes. But I knew better. Nobody drives 20 minutes out of their way just for that. The truth was, her car wasn't the only thing falling apart. I'd overheard the call she tried to take outside yesterday, voice low, sharp. Something about papers, about him taking everything that matters. She hung up quick when she saw me watching, pretended nothing happened. That stuck with me. Maybe it shouldn't have. Maybe I should have minded my own business. But I couldn't shake the way her voice cracked right before she cut the line. This time, when she walked in, she didn't wear the same pressed confidence. Her blouse was a little wrinkled, her hair tied back looser, like she hadn't cared enough to smooth it out. But her eyes, they still carried that weight. Brakes, she said simply, dropping the keys on the counter. Brakes, I repeated, half a question. She didn't answer, just crossed her arms, tapping her nails again. Same rhythm, different meaning now. I slid behind the counter, taking her paperwork, but I couldn't stop noticing things. The faint red line where her ring used to sit. The way she avoided looking at the wall calendar, like dates themselves were too sharp to touch. She caught me staring at her hand. They're just keys, she said. But it wasn't about the keys. She knew it. I knew it. I cleared my throat, went back to the car talk, tried to make it business. But my chest felt tight, like the air itself was conspiring against me. She sat down in the corner chair, crossing one leg over the other, heel dangling loosely. "You're quiet today." I forced a laugh. "You want me to talk about brake pads for half an hour?" Her smile was thin. "No, just don't like silence." Silence. The word hit different, like she wasn't talking about the shop anymore. I bent down to check the tire gauge just to break the tension. But then I felt it, a shift subtle. She had stood up, walked closer, her shadow stretching across the floor until it touched mine. "You're making this dangerous," she murmured. Not accusing, more like admitting. I looked up. Too fast. Too close. For a moment, her face was inches from mine, and I saw it. The tiny crease between her brows, the tiredness under her eyes, the way her lips almost moved again but didn't. I wanted to say something, "You don't have to carry it alone," or maybe just "I see you." But the words stuck. My tongue wouldn't risk it. Instead, I tightened my grip on the wrench until my knuckles went white. She noticed. Her gaze flicked to my hand, then back up, and without thinking, she reached out. Her fingers brushed my arm. Quick. Almost nothing. But it was enough. "Stay a little longer," she said softly. Not a question. Not really. I swallowed hard, pulse hammering, and all I could think was, I might already be in too deep. She stayed longer than either of us admitted she should. Said she wanted to see how the brakes looked. But no one ever watches that closely. She leaned against the doorway of the garage, arms folded, eyes following me with a patience that didn't belong in a place like this. I tried to keep it light, keep it safe. Talked about rotors and mileage, about how her sedan was overdue for more than just a tune-up. But every time I looked up, she was still watching me. Not the car. Me. Should have been easy to ignore. Just another customer. Just another job. But then she crouched down beside me while I worked, her perfume mixing with the metallic tang of grease and rust. Close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. Close enough I caught myself holding my breath. "You're good at this," she said quietly. I wiped my hands on the rag, pretended to laugh it off. "It's just bolts and screws. Nothing special." But she shook her head, eyes narrowing slightly, like she didn't believe me. "No, you notice things. Small things. Most people don't." The way she said it, low, deliberate, made it feel like she wasn't talking about cars anymore. For a second, I almost told her. About the way I'd seen her take that phone call outside. About the empty ring line on her finger. The restless way she tapped her nails when she thought no one was looking. I almost confessed how she'd been in my head since the moment she walked in. How I caught myself waiting for that doorbell chime even when I knew she wouldn't come. But before the words could leave, her phone buzzed. Loud. Jarring. She flinched like she'd been caught. The screen lit up in her hand. A name she didn't show me. She silenced it fast, stuffing the phone back in her purse, pretending it hadn't happened. "You should get that," I said, voice tighter than I meant. "No," she replied, too quick. "Not right now." Her hand lingered near mine on the floor, fingers brushing against the cold concrete between us. Neither of us moved them away. The fan hummed overhead, the shop too quiet, the moment stretching until it felt like it might break. I tried to pull back, to bury myself in the work. I picked up the wrench, focused on the bolts, pretended I didn't feel her gaze burning into the side of my face. But my hand shook, just enough for her to notice. She leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're trying too hard to look busy." I turned my head. Our faces were suddenly too close, her breath warm, the edges of her lipstick catching the light. My chest tightened. One wrong word, one wrong move, and I knew we'd be past the point of pretending. Then the shop bell rang. Sharp, metallic. Someone had walked in. We jerked apart instantly, the spell broken. but the air between us still crackled, heavy and unfinished. I forced a smile, wiped my hands, greeted the newcomer like nothing had happened. But my heart was still racing, and I couldn't stop thinking, next time, there might not be anything to pull us back. The shop was empty that evening. Everyone else had gone home. Just me, the echo of tools on metal, and the soft sound of her heels against the concrete floor. She hadn't said why she came back again. She didn't need to. I was hunched over the hood of her car when I felt it, her presence behind me. Not touching, but close enough that I could sense the warmth of her body in the stale air. "You don't know what you're doing," she said softly. I set the wrench down slowly, heart hammering. "With the car. With me." The words hit harder than I expected. My throat went dry. I wanted to laugh it off, defuse it, but my voice betrayed me. "Maybe I do." She moved closer, close enough that her reflection blurred against the metal surface I was working on. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. I noticed the way her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her bracelet. "This is wrong," she whispered. "I'm too old for—" She cut herself off, shaking her head like the sentence had already gone too far. I turned, wiping my hands on the rag again, though there was nothing left to clean. "You think I care about that?" Her eyes met mine then, and it felt like a door opening and slamming shut all at once. A dozen words sat on my tongue, dangerous ones. "I want you. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't care what anyone says." But I bit them back, hard enough to taste blood. Instead, what came out was quieter, sharper. "You act like I'm the one crossing lines, but you keep coming back." That landed. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it. She just stared at me, jaw tight, like she hated that I'd said it out loud. Silence stretched between us. The fan clicked. The car engine ticked as it cooled. She stepped forward once, then stopped, caught between the distance she wanted and the closeness she couldn't resist. "You make this so much harder than it needs to be," she said finally, her voice breaking on the last word. I should have walked away, should have let it end there, but I didn't. I closed the hood, set the rag aside, and met her eyes head-on. "Then tell me to stop." Her breath caught. For a second, I thought she would. I thought she'd give me the easy way out. But she didn't say anything. The air between us tightened, heavy with everything unsaid. My pulse was in my throat, and I swear she could hear it. Finally, she whispered, almost too soft to catch, "What if I don't want you to?" And then nothing. Just silence. Just her eyes locked on mine, waiting, daring me to move first. Her words, "What if I don't want you to?" were still hanging in the air when the sound cut through the shop. A knock, sharp, deliberate. Not the accidental rattle of someone lost, but the kind of knock that expects to be answered. She froze. Her body stiffened, eyes darting to the door, then back to me. I saw the shift, the confidence slipping, the weight of something I hadn't yet understood pressing down on her shoulders. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. The same line she'd said before, but this time it wasn't about me. The knock came again, louder. I wiped my hands, moved toward the door, but she caught my arm, fingers gripping hard, almost desperate. "Don't." That single word carried more than warning. Carried history, fear, something unspoken. My chest tightened. "Who is it?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She shook her head once, slowly, and in that silence I saw it, the flicker of panic, of regret, of something bigger than the two of us. Finally, she whispered, "My ex." The word landed like a wrench dropped on concrete. Loud, final, impossible to ignore. I didn't know much about her life beyond the ring line on her finger, the late-night calls, the way her smile sometimes died too fast. But now it wasn't just fragments. It was here, flesh and blood, standing on the other side of the door. The knocking stopped. A pause. Then a voice, muffled, male but sharp. I know you're in there. Her grip on my arm tightened. Please, just stay quiet. I should have pulled away, let her handle it. But I couldn't. Not after everything she hadn't said. Not after the way she'd looked at me, like I was the only safe place left. You don't have to, I started. But she cut me off with a look. Not anger. Not even fear. Just exhaustion. The kind that comes from fighting too long. The man outside rattled the handle. Once, twice, then silence again. We stood there, neither of us breathing. My pulse hammered in my ears, but all I could think about was her hand still on my arm, holding on like she didn't realize she was doing it. Finally, his footsteps retreated. The sound faded into nothing. She let go slowly, her fingers sliding away, leaving a cold imprint on my skin. Then she stepped back, shoulders sagging. I told you this was dangerous, she said, her voice rough now, stripped of every layer of control. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that I didn't care, that he wasn't here now. But the words stuck, because I knew this wasn't just about us anymore. It never was. Her eyes met mine, softer this time, almost pleading. If you stay, you'll be part of it. The air between us was heavier than ever, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if she was warning me away or daring me to step closer. The shop felt too small after that, the silence too loud. Her words, if you stay, you'll be part of it, hung between us, daring me to answer. Couldn't. Not right away. My throat felt dry, my chest tight, and all I could do was stare at the grease stains on my hands, as if they held some kind of answer. She turned away first, pacing, slow steps across the concrete floor, like she was trying to walk out of her own skin. You're young, she said finally. You don't know what it's like to carry all this. Her voice cracked on this, and I knew she wasn't just talking about her ex, or the car, or even me. She was talking about years, choices, the kind of regret that builds layer by layer until it weighs more than you can hold. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I wasn't just a kid fumbling my way through this. But the truth was, part of me didn't know what I was doing. Not really. All I knew was the way my chest tightened whenever she looked at me, the way my pulse jumped when her hand brushed mine. You think I don't get it? I asked quietly. I watch you pretend you're fine. I watch you leave and still come back. I see you. That stopped her. She froze mid-step, back still to me, shoulders trembling just enough for me to notice. When she turned, her eyes were glassy, sharp and soft all at once. And what do you see, exactly? The question nearly broke me, because the answer was dangerous. Because once I said it, there wouldn't be any going back. I stepped closer, slow, careful, until I was near enough to see the faint smear of mascara under her eye, the uneven rise and fall of her chest. My voice was low, but steady. I see someone worth breaking the rules for. Her lips parted. No words, just breath. The air felt charged, alive, like one spark could set it ablaze. My hand hovered, inches from hers, trembling with the weight of what I wanted to do but wasn't sure I should. She closed the gap first. Not a kiss, not a full embrace, just her hand, finding mine, gripping tight, like she'd been drowning and finally let herself reach for the surface. For a long moment we just stood there, two people caught in something neither of us planned for, neither of us could name. Finally, she whispered, "This can't last." "I know," I said, and I meant it, but I also didn't let go of her hand. The clock ticked, the fan clicked, and in the quiet we both understood whatever this was, it had already changed us. She didn't come back the next day, or the day after. The shop felt different without her, quieter, though it had always been quiet. I caught myself glancing at the door every time the bell jingled, expecting her silhouette. But it was always someone else. A delivery guy, a stranger, never her. I should have been relieved, Should have been grateful the line we'd been tiptoeing around didn't snap. But relief never came. Just an ache, heavy and low, like something left unfinished. On the third night, when the tools were put away and the lights dimmed, I heard the familiar click of heels on concrete. Slow, hesitant. My chest tightened before I even looked up. She stood there, keys in hand, but her usual composure was gone. No carefully pinned hair. No pressed blouse. Just her, looking tired but real. "I needed to say goodbye," she said. The words landed like a punch, though I'd half expected them. She stepped closer, her gaze softer now, stripped of the weight she always carried. "You were right. I kept coming back because I wanted to feel seen. And you?" Her voice cracked, and she shook her head, smiling sadly. "You saw too much." I wanted to tell her it wasn't too late, that we could figure it out no matter how messy. But her eyes told me she'd already made her choice. "Someone like you," she whispered, "deserves someone who isn't broken in half." The silence that followed was heavier than anything we'd shared before. My throat burned, but I forced the words out anyway. "You weren't broken. Not to me." For the first time since I'd met her, she let herself cry. Quiet, controlled, but real. She reached out, brushed the back of her hand against my cheek, then pulled away like the touch had cost her too much. We stood there a long moment, neither moving, the fan clicking overhead, the clock ticking forward. And then, slowly, she placed her keys on the counter. The last tie to all those excuses she'd used to keep coming back. "Take care of yourself," she said. And then she left. No lingering glance this time. No unfinished line. Just the sound of the door shutting, final and steady. I stood there, staring at those keys, wondering if I'd ruined something, or if maybe, just maybe, I'd given her what she needed. A reason to walk away stronger than when she came. That night, lying awake, I realized something. Some connections aren't meant to last forever. Some are meant to show you who you are, even if they leave you aching. She was regret turned into recognition. And me? Maybe I was obsession turned into something like love. Love I'd have to carry alone. But I wouldn't forget. Not her voice, not her hand in mine, not the moment we almost crossed the line. Because sometimes the almost stays with you longer than the ever after.